Dr. Zara Chen's fingers danced across holographic displays as her research vessel, the Meridian, shuddered violently. Alarms screamed their digital warnings while the hull groaned under impossible stress. Atmospheric breach imminent, the ship's AI announced with infuriating calm. Recommend immediate evacuation. Evacuation to where exactly? Zara muttered, wrestling with the controls. The pirate ambush had destroyed her escort ships and crippled her engines. The planet below, uncharted, unauthorized, strictly forbidden by Colonial Authority regulations, was her only option. She wasn't a pilot. She was a xenolinguist, a cultural anthropologist who specialized in first contact protocols. Flying a crippled research vessel through a hostile atmosphere while dodging plasma fire was decidedly outside her expertise. The Meridian screamed through cloud layers, trailing fire and debris. Zara's academic mind cataloged observations even as terror gripped her. Binary star system, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, extensive ice coverage. Potentially habitable. Potentially lethal, the impact came with crushing force. Consciousness fled in fragments, the screech of tearing metal, the acrid smell of burning circuits, the taste of blood. Zara's neural augment pulsed weakly, dragging her back to awareness. Everything hurt. Her environmental suit had protected her from the worst, but her left arm hung useless, and her vision swam with concussion warnings. Status report, she croaked. Silence. The AI was dead along with most ship systems. Emergency power flickered, casting her surroundings in hellish red light. She dragged herself from the wreckage, emerging into a world of breathtaking desolation. Crystalline formations jutted from frozen earth like teeth, refracting the light of twin suns into prismatic displays. The sky shimmered with auroral curtains, their colors shifting hypnotically. Beautiful, she whispered, then immediately chastised herself. Survival first, sightseeing later. Her augment still functioned, overlaying tactical data across her vision. Temperature minus 40 degrees Celsius. Oxygen levels adequate. Local time approximately 14 hours until dark. No beacon signal. No rescue coming. Zara's anthropological training kicked in. Shelter, water, food, fire. The universal constants of survival. Applicable whether on Earth or an ice planet 20,000 light-years from home. The wreckage yielded meager supplies. Emergency rations, a medical kit, a plasma cutter, and miraculously intact her portable data archive. Years of research preserved in quantum storage. If she died here, at least her work might survive. As darkness approached with alarming speed, Zara constructed a rudimentary shelter using debris and her environmental suit's thermal capabilities. But the cold was relentless, seeping through every barrier. She needed heat, real heat. The plasma cutter could serve double duty. Gathering frozen vegetation that crackled like glass, she arranged it carefully and ignited it with the cutter's focused beam. The flames caught, spreading with surprising vigor, casting dancing shadows across the alien landscape. Zara huddled close to the fire, her analytical mind noting how the local plant matter burned with unusual efficiency, rich in hydrocarbons, she theorized. The flames reflected in the ice formations surrounding her crash site, creating an almost ethereal ambiance. She didn't notice the silence, how every ambient sound had ceased, how the wind itself seemed to hold its breath. Her attention remained fixed on coaxing warmth from the flames and contemplating her exceptionally poor fortune. A subtle movement in her peripheral vision made her freeze. Her hand instinctively reached for the plasma cutter, now serving as her only weapon. 4 figures materialized from the crystalline landscape, their approach so silent that Zara's heart hammered with belated alarm. They stood at the edge of her firelight, studying her with unmistakable intelligence. They were breathtaking, humanoid in general configuration, but their skin held an opalescent quality that shifted with the firelight, blues and silvers and hints of violet. Tall and lean, with elongated limbs suggesting adaptation to lower gravity or different evolutionary pressures. Their eyes were large and multifaceted like gemstones reflecting light in fractured patterns. The foremost figure stepped closer, and Zara's breath caught. Female, or what appeared analogous to female in human terms. She wore minimal clothing despite the brutal cold, a harness of dark material that emphasized rather than concealed her alien physiology. In her hands, she carried a weapon that resembled a crystalline spear. its surface etched with patterns that glowed faintly. Zara slowly raised her hands, palms outward, the universal gesture of peace, she hoped. Her augment frantically analyzed vocal patterns as the leader spoke, her voice melodic yet carrying an edge of authority. Skahara Veltine, Roshek Firashan. The translation algorithms struggled, finding no linguistic matches in their extensive database. But tone and body language transcended words. This was a question, possibly a challenge. I mean no harm, Zara said carefully. Activating her augment's linguistic learning protocols, the device would record and analyze every word, every gesture, building a translation matrix in real time. My vessel crashed. I seek only shelter. The leader's crystalline eyes studied her intently. She spoke again, her companions remaining silent and alert behind her. Beltane Asha, Korish Damar. A pause, then surprisingly, human. Zara's eyes widened. Yes, human, you know my language? The alien's expression remained unreadable, but she gestured to Zara's fire, then to the horizon where storm clouds gathered with ominous speed. Her meaning was clear. Danger approaches. Koresh Damar Kessa'lyn, Sha'dari Kor. She turned to her companions, issuing rapid commands. Two of them moved forward cautiously, assessing Zara and her camp with professional efficiency. Zara's augment chimed softly, having established preliminary linguistic connections. The translation appeared in her vision. Storm death comes. You follow or freeze. Not much of a choice. I'll follow, Zara agreed, quickly gathering her supplies. The leader waited with barely concealed impatience as Zara secured her data archive and what remained of her medical kit. As they set off into the crystalline wilderness, Zara cast one last glance at her burning shelter. The flames were already dying, consumed by the approaching wind. She was leaving behind everything familiar, placing her survival in the hands, or rather, the crystalline talons, of an utterly alien species. Her anthropologist's mind cataloged observations even through her exhaustion. Their movement patterns suggested coordinated hunting tactics. Their clothing implied advanced textile production. Their weapons showed sophisticated craftsmanship. This was not a primitive culture. The leader glanced back at her, those fractured gemstone eyes assessing. Then surprisingly she spoke again in heavily accented but comprehensible English. I am Kessa'lyn, Ice Warden of the Sha'dari. She gestured ahead to where faint lights glimmered in the distance. You live tonight, human, tomorrow we shall determine. It wasn't exactly a warm welcome, but Zara found herself smiling despite everything. First contact achieved. Even if the circumstances were catastrophically poor, she'd survived the crash, survived the cold, and now, perhaps, she might survive long enough to understand these remarkable people. Dr. Zara Chen, she replied, struggling to keep pace through the deep snow. Xenolinguist and apparently the galaxy's worst pilot. Thank you for your mercy, Kessa'lyn. The alien's expression might have been amusement, or it might have been something entirely different. Mercy is earned, not given, she said. You brought fire to the frozen waste. This draws attention, both welcome and otherwise. As they descended into a valley where the Sha'dari settlement awaited, Zara realized that her greatest challenge wasn't survival. It was understanding and being understood by a species that viewed her presence as either a blessing or a catastrophe. The adventure, she thought with a mixture of terror and exhilaration, was just beginning. The crystalline archive, the Sha'dari settlement defied every expectation Zara had formed during their journey. Rather than crude structures suited to a harsh environment, she found herself approaching an architectural marvel that seemed to grow organically from the landscape itself. Towers of crystalline material spiraled upward, their surfaces carved with intricate patterns that caught and amplified the auroral light. Some structures appeared entirely transparent, revealing multiple levels and inhabitants moving within. Others were opaque, their purposes mysterious. Thermal vents released steady streams of vapor that rose like reverent offerings to the binary stars above. Impressive, Zara breathed, her augment struggling to categorize what she was witnessing. How old is this settlement? Kessa'lyn's expression conveyed something that might have been pride. The archive heart has stood for 3,000 rotations of our world. We are Sha'dari, keepers of memory, guardians of the crystalline truth. The translation protocols were improving rapidly. Zara's augment fed her contextual information. Archive Heart appeared to be both a physical location and a cultural concept of profound significance. Keepers of memory suggested an archival society, perhaps historian scholars. As they entered the settlement proper, Zara became aware of increasing attention. Sha'dari emerged from dwellings, their opalescent skin shifting through color spectrums as they observed her. Unlike Kessa'lyn and her companions, many wore more elaborate garments, flowing fabrics that seemed to incorporate the same crystalline material as their architecture. "Your arrival has caused considerable disruption," Kessa'lyn observed, her tone neutral but her multifaceted eyes watchful. "We have encountered sky-fallen ones before, but never one who breached the storm wall during the darkening season." "The darkening season?" Zara queried, her academic curiosity overriding her exhaustion. "When both suns begin their descent toward the horizon. For 3 months, twilight reigns and the raiders grow bold." Kessa'lyn guided her toward a particularly imposing structure at the settlement's center. "Your fire beacon has announced your presence to more than just the Sha'dari." Alarm spiked through Zara's fatigue. "Raiders? You're under threat?" "Constantly," Kessa'lyn's voice hardened. "The Vor'taxx hunger for what we protect. They seek to plunder our archives, to steal memories not meant for their grasping minds." She paused before massive doors adorned with symbols that Zara's augment identified as possibly mathematical or astronomical in nature. "The Council of Remembrance will determine what to do with you. If you prove useful, you may remain under protection. If not..." She left the alternative unspoken, but Zara understood. Survival depended on demonstrating value. The interior of the archive heart stole Zara's breath. Soaring ceilings disappeared into darkness above, while below, crystalline formations housed what could only be described as libraries, but libraries of a type she'd never imagined. Rather than books or data tablets, information seemed stored within the crystals themselves, glowing with inner light and emitting soft harmonic tones. 7 Sha'dari awaited them, seated upon raised platforms arranged in a semicircle. Their advanced age was evident in the deeper crystallization of their skin, the more elaborate patterns etched into their bodies. These were the elders, the keepers of accumulated wisdom. The central figure, a female whose skin had achieved almost complete crystalline transformation, spoke first. Her voice resonated with harmonics that Zara's augment struggled to process. "Ice Warden Kessa'lyn, you bring contamination to the archive heart during the darkening season. Explain this violation." Kessa'lyn bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect. "Honored voice of memory, the sky-fallen one breached the storm wall in a vessel of burning metal. She created fire bloom on the sacred plains, drawing the night watchers from their slumber. I deemed immediate intervention necessary." Murmurs rippled through the assembled elders. The voice of memory's multifaceted eyes fixed on Zara with unsettling intensity. "Human," she said, and Zara startled at the perfect pronunciation. "We know your kind. One came before, many rotations passed. He taught us much before the cold claimed him." Zara's heart raced. Another human had been here? "May I ask when this occurred? What was his name?" Questions from one who stands uninvited before the council. An elder to the left spoke sharply. "You demonstrate the arrogance typical of your species." "Forgive me," Zara said quickly, bowing as Kessa'lyn had done. "I meant no disrespect. I'm a xenolinguist, a student of cultures and languages. Understanding your people and your history is my life's work." The voice of memory tilted her head, an eerily avian gesture. "A scholar, then? Not a warrior or merchant? Curious." She gestured, and one of the younger Sha'dari approached, carrying a crystalline tablet. "Place your hand upon the memory stone. We shall see the truth of your words." Zara hesitated only momentarily before complying. The moment her palm contacted the crystal, warmth flooded through her, and with it something else. Images, sensations, emotions that weren't her own cascaded through her consciousness. She glimpsed memories, the previous human. A weathered explorer named Marcus Chen. The coincidence of the surname jolted her. Teaching Sha'dari children about Earth's oceans. Dying peacefully in a crystalline chamber while Sha'dari sang harmonies of farewell. When the connection broke, Zara stumbled. Kessa'lyn caught her elbow, steadying her with unexpected gentleness. "You carry scholar truth," the voice of memory announced. "Your mind holds knowledge, not malice. However, your presence presents complications. The Vor'taxx already gather at our borders. Your sky vessel's descent was witnessed across the frozen wastes. They will come seeking you, Seeking your technology, seeking opportunity to breach our defenses. Then I should leave, Zara said immediately, though the thought of returning to the frozen wilderness filled her with dread. I won't bring danger to your people. Leave? Another elder laughed, the sound like wind chimes. Child, you would last perhaps one rotation of the greater sun before freezing or being captured by the Vor'taxx. Neither outcome serves any purpose. The voice of memory raised a crystalline hand commanding silence. You will remain under Ice Warden Kessa'lyn's protection and instruction. In exchange, you will share your knowledge, particularly any information regarding the sky vessels of the Vor'taxx allies. If your technology can aid our defense, you may yet prove beneficial rather than burdensome. Relief warred with apprehension in Zara's chest. She was being given sanctuary, but at a price. I'll help however I can, she promised. See that you do. The voice of memory's tone softened fractionally. The human who came before enriched our archive with perspectives we had never considered. Perhaps you shall do the same. Or perhaps you will simply provide the Vor'taxx with motivation to attack during our weakest season. Time will reveal your true value. The council dismissed them with gestures that Zara's augment interpreted as both blessing and warning. As Kessa'lyn led her from the archive heart, Zara felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, assessing, judging, wondering. You handled that better than expected, Kessa'lyn observed once they were outside. Most Skyfallen ones become defensive or aggressive when questioned. I'm a cultural anthropologist, Zara explained. My entire career has been built on respecting alien customs and adapting to unfamiliar social structures. Though I'll admit, having my thoughts read by a crystal was a new experience. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Kessa'lyn's features. The memory stones reveal only surface truth, emotions and intent, not detailed knowledge. Had you possessed deceptive intent, it would have manifested as discordance. She guided Zara through winding paths between crystalline structures. Come, my dwelling offers warmth and sustenance. We have much to discuss regarding the Vor'taxx and your potential usefulness. Zara followed, her scientific mind already racing with questions about the memory stones, the crystalline technology, the previous human visitor who shared her surname. But underneath the academic curiosity, she felt something unexpected. A spark of connection to the enigmatic Ice Warden who had saved her life. Kessa'lyn's dwelling proved both austere and elegant, a single large chamber with walls of semi-transparent crystal that allowed diffused light to enter while maintaining privacy. Furs covered the floor and a central heat source radiated steady warmth. Weapons hung on one wall. Spears, bladed implements, and something that resembled a crossbow fashioned from crystalline components. You're a warrior scholar? Zara observed, noting the juxtaposition of weapons and what appeared to be personal memory stones arranged on shelves. All Sha'dari are scholars, Kessa'lyn corrected, removing her harness and outer garments with unself-conscious grace. But some of us also serve as wardens, protectors of the archive and our people. The Vor'taxx would see everything we've preserved across millennia, destroyed or stolen. We cannot allow this. She retrieved food from a storage alcove, crystallized proteins, frozen fruits, and a warm liquid that smelled faintly of minerals. Eat. Your body requires sustenance after the crash and journey. Zara accepted gratefully, her emergency rations having been lost in her hasty departure from the crash site. The food was surprisingly palatable, though distinctly alien in texture and flavor. As they ate, Kessa'lyn studied her with those unsettling, multifaceted eyes. Tell me of your sky vessel's destruction. What manner of attackers pursued you? Zara recounted the ambush, the pirate ships emerging from a quantum fold point, their aggressive tactics, their apparent interest in capturing rather than destroying her research vessel. They wore no identifying marks, she concluded, but their technology suggested they were well-funded. Someone wanted my research badly enough to violate Colonial Authority space. Your research, Kessa'lyn repeated thoughtfully. What knowledge do you possess that merits such aggression? I've spent 15 years studying xenolinguistic patterns across 36 species, Zara explained. My data archive contains linguistic keys, cultural analysis, even some information about lost civilizations. She paused, a troubling thought occurring. If these pirates were working with your Vor'taxx, they would seek to understand how to breach our archive defenses, Kessa'lyn finished grimly. The memory stones respond to specific harmonic frequencies. Linguistic knowledge might allow them to decode our protections. Her expression hardened. Your presence here is more dangerous than the Council realizes. Then I should definitely leave, Zara insisted. I won't be responsible for compromising your entire civilization. You vastly overestimate both your importance and your chances of survival, Kessa'lyn said bluntly. No, you remain here under my direct supervision. If the Vor'taxx seek you, they will need to come through me first. Her hand moved unconsciously to one of the bladed weapons on the wall, and I have sent many Vor'taxx to feed the ice worms. The casual ferocity of that statement sent a shiver through Zara that had nothing to do with fear. There was something compelling about Kessa'lyn's absolute certainty, her unwavering commitment to protecting what she valued. Why? Zara asked quietly. Why take this risk for an outsider? Kessa'lyn was silent for a long moment, her opalescent skin shifting through subtle color gradients. You brought fire to the darkness, she said finally. In our culture, firebringers are considered harbingers of change, neither inherently good nor evil, but significant. The last firebringer was the human Marcus. He changed our understanding of the universe beyond our world. Her eyes met Zara's. Perhaps you will do the same, or perhaps you will bring only destruction. Either way, I would witness your impact firsthand. Zara searched for words. That's possibly the most terrifying vote of confidence I've ever received. Something that was definitely amusement crossed Kessa'lyn's features. You possess courage, at least. Lesser beings would have perished in the crash or the cold. You adapted, constructed shelter, created fire. These are worthwhile traits. I'm an academic, Zara protested. I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn. In my experience, there is little difference between the two. Kessa'lyn stood, moving to adjust the heat source. You will sleep here tonight. Tomorrow we begin your education in Sha'dari culture and defense protocols. If the Vor'taxx come, and they will come, you must be prepared. As Zara settled into the surprisingly comfortable furs, exhaustion finally overwhelming her adrenaline, she found herself watching Kessa'lyn move about the dwelling. The alien's movements held a liquid grace, a confidence that spoke of absolute mastery of her environment. Kessa'lyn, Zara murmured, already half asleep. Yes, thank you. For everything. The ice warden paused, glancing back at her. In the soft glow of the heat source, her crystalline features seemed almost to glow from within. Survive the coming days, Dr. Chen. Then we shall determine if gratitude is warranted. As sleep claimed her, Zara's last conscious thought was that she'd traveled 20,000 light years and survived a ship crash, only to find herself drawn to an alien warrior scholar who viewed her as either a harbinger of change or an inconvenient complication. The universe, she reflected, had a remarkable sense of irony. Harmony and discord. Zara woke to the sound of harmonics, crystalline tones that resonated through the dwelling like living music. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then memory flooded back. The crash, the rescue, the Council's judgment. Kessa'lyn knelt before a cluster of memory stones, her hands moving in precise gestures that coaxed sound from the crystals. It was beautiful and alien and utterly mesmerizing. You're awake, Kessa'lyn observed without turning. Good, we have considerable work ahead. Zara sat up, wincing at the soreness in her muscles. Her augment displayed medical data. Minor contusions healing normally. Concussion symptoms diminished. Core temperature stable. What were you doing? That sound. Morning harmonics, Kessa'lyn explained, finishing her ritual. We attune ourselves to the archive's frequency each dawn. It maintains our connection to preserved memory. She turned, and Zara noticed her skin had shifted to brighter hues, blues and silvers more vibrant than the previous evening. Your augment device. May I examine it? Zara instinctively touched the neural interface at her temple. It's integrated with my nervous system. Removing it would be problematic. I do not seek removal, merely understanding. If we are to coordinate defense against the Vor'taxx, I must know your capabilities. Kessa'lyn approached, her movements controlled and non-threatening. May I? After a moment's hesitation, Zara nodded. Kessa'lyn's fingers were surprisingly gentle as they traced the augment's external components, her touch sending unexpected tingles across Zara's skin. Fascinating, the Sha'dari murmured. You enhance your natural cognition with technology. We accomplish similar results through genetic modification and crystalline integration. She withdrew her hand. Different methods, comparable outcomes. Perhaps we are not so different, your people and mine. Convergent evolution of intelligence enhancement, Zara mused. From an anthropological perspective, it suggests universal principles of cognitive development across species. Her academic enthusiasm bubbled up despite the circumstances. I'd love to study how your crystalline integration functions at the neurological level. Later, Kessa'lyn interrupted, though not unkindly. First, you must learn to survive. Come. She led Zara outside where the Sha'dari settlement was awakening to the perpetual twilight of the darkening season. The binary suns hung low on the horizon, painting everything in hues of amber and crimson. Their first stop was an armory built into the base of one of the larger crystalline towers. Inside, weapons of elegant and lethal design lined the walls. Kessa'lyn selected a staff of crystalline material, testing its balance before offering it to Zara. The Vor'taxx favor close combat when they raid. Energy weapons disrupt the harmonic fields that power our settlement, so they avoid using them here. You must be prepared for physical confrontation. Zara accepted the staff awkwardly. I should mention that my combat training consists primarily of one self-defense course in graduate school. I'm a linguist, not a warrior. Then you will learn quickly or you will die. Kessa'lyn retrieved her own weapon, a bladed spear that seemed to hum with latent energy. Stance. What followed was simultaneously the most humiliating and educational experience of Zara's life. Kessa'lyn proved a demanding but effective instructor, correcting Zara's form with a combination of verbal instruction and physical adjustment. By the time they paused for mid-cycle rest, Zara was exhausted, bruised, and had gained profound respect for Sha'dari combat techniques. You learn adequately, Kessa'lyn assessed, which Zara recognized as high praise. Your movements lack fluidity, but your spatial reasoning is sound. With practice, you might achieve basic competence. I'll try not to let that overwhelming endorsement go to my head, Zara said dryly, collapsing onto a bench. Her augment was feeding her data about muscle strain and recommended recovery protocols, but she ignored it. How long until you expect this Vor'taxx attack? Days. Perhaps a full rotation if we're fortunate. Kessa'lyn sat beside her, close enough that Zara could feel the unusual warmth radiating from her crystalline skin. The fire beacon you created would have been visible across the frozen wastes. The Vor'taxx will investigate, and when they discover a sky-fallen one among us, they will attack in force. Guilt twisted in Zara's stomach. This is my fault. If I hadn't lit that fire, you would have frozen to death, accomplishing nothing. Kessa'lyn's tone was matter-of-fact rather than comforting. The Vor'taxx would attack eventually regardless. Your presence merely accelerates their timeline. She paused, then added, though I confess curiosity about what you might contribute to our defense. Your technology is primitive in some ways, advanced in others. An interesting contradiction. Humanity specializes in contradictions, Zara said wryly. She pulled up her data archive on her augment's display, projecting the hologram into the air between them. My research might contain something useful. Cultural analysis of aggressive species, linguistic patterns that might apply to your Vor'taxx. Kessa'lyn leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic light in mesmerizing patterns. Show me everything you have on species that utilize raiding tactics combined with linguistic or memetic warfare. For the next several hours, they worked together, Zara navigating her extensive archives while Kessa'lyn absorbed information with remarkable speed. The Sha'dari's questions were incisive, often making connections Zara herself had overlooked. Here, Kessa'lyn said suddenly, pointing to a cultural analysis of a species called the Vor'taxx. These patterns, the emphasis on oral tradition as power structure, the use of stolen cultural artifacts to demonstrate dominance. This mirrors Vor'taxx behavior precisely. Zara studied the comparison, her mind racing. If the parallel holds, then the Vor'taxx aren't just raiding for resources. They're trying to establish dominance by appropriating your cultural memory. It's memetic warfare. They want to prove they're superior by stealing and corrupting your archive, which means they will not simply attack and retreat. Kessa'lyn's expression darkened. They will seek to occupy, to establish permanent presence. This is worse than anticipated. But it also gives us an advantage, Zara countered, excitement building despite the grim subject matter. If we understand their motivations, we can predict their tactics. They'll target the archive heart specifically, probably with a symbolic assault designed to humiliate as much as destroy. Kessa'lyn stood abruptly, pacing with restless energy. The council must hear this. If you're correct, our defensive preparations are inadequate. She turned back to Zara, and something shifted in her expression. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of genuine regard. You demonstrate value beyond mere survival instinct, Dr. Chen. Call me Zara, she said impulsively. If we're going to be defending your civilization together, we might as well dispense with formalities. Zara. Kessa'lyn tested the name, her accent making it sound exotic. Very well. And you may use my name without title. It was a small thing, but Zara recognized its significance, an acknowledgement of equality, of partnership rather than mere guardian and ward. They presented their findings to the council that evening. The voice of memory listened intently, occasionally asking questions that demonstrated frighteningly sharp intelligence. When they finished, silence stretched through the archive heart. Your analysis possesses disturbing plausibility, the voice of memory said finally. If the Vor'taxx truly seek to establish permanent dominance through cultural destruction, we face a threat greater than we imagined. She addressed the other council members. We must accelerate our defensive preparations and fortify the archive heart's inner sanctum. With respect, honored voice, Kessa'lyn interjected, fortification alone will not suffice. We should consider offensive strategies, disrupting their gathering forces before they can coordinate a full assault. You propose a preemptive strike? An elder's tone carried skepticism. We are scholars and preservers, not aggressors. We are survivors, Kessa'lyn countered firmly. And survival sometimes requires embracing uncomfortable necessities. The debate continued, voices rising in passion. Zara watched, fascinated by the interplay of personalities and philosophies. Here was a culture that valued both preservation and pragmatism, scholarship and survival. They reminded her of humanity's better impulses, the drive to protect knowledge while adapting to changing circumstances. Eventually, the voice of memory raised a crystalline hand, commanding silence. Ice Warden Kessa'lyn, you will lead a reconnaissance force to assess Vor'taxx positions. Take the human... She paused, corrected herself. Take Zara. Her analytical perspective may prove valuable. Report back within 2 cycles. As they departed the archive heart, Zara felt a complex mixture of emotions. Fear of the coming conflict, certainly, but also exhilaration, the thrill of participating in something significant, of contributing meaningfully to a culture not her own. You're smiling, Kessa'lyn observed as they walked through the twilit settlement. I'm terrified, Zara admitted, but I'm also exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I trained my entire life to do. Bridging cultures, facilitating understanding, helping where I can. Kessa'lyn stopped walking, turning to face her fully. In the amber light of the low-hanging suns, her opalescent skin seemed almost to glow with inner fire. You are unusual among your kind, Zara Chen. The previous human was primarily concerned with returning to his people. You seem more interested in understanding mine. Maybe that's because I finally found a culture worth understanding, Zara said quietly. Or maybe it's because I found someone worth knowing better. The words hung between them, heavier with implication than Zara had intended. Kessa'lyn's multifaceted eyes studied her with an intensity that made Zara's breath catch. The reconnaissance departs at dawn, Kessa'lyn said finally, her voice carrying undertones Zara couldn't quite interpret. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow we venture into dangerous territory. As Zara prepared for sleep that night, she found herself acutely aware of Kessa'lyn's presence in the shared dwelling. They had established a comfortable routine over the past days, but tonight felt different, charged with unspoken possibilities. Kessa'lyn? Zara ventured into the quiet darkness. Yes? Among your people, is there a concept analogous to human friendship? Partnership beyond mere alliance? A long pause. Then, we have harmony bonds. When 2 Sha'dari resonate at compatible frequencies, they may choose to interweave their crystalline signatures. It is profound, intimate, another pause. Why do you ask? Zara's heart hammered in her chest. Because I think we're developing something like that, and I wanted to understand if that's possible between our species. Silence stretched and Zara began to regret her boldness. Then she heard movement. Kessa'lyn rising, crossing the space between them. In the darkness, her bioluminescent skin provided the only light, casting everything in ethereal blue-silver. "Give me your hand," Kessa'lyn said softly. Zara extended her hand, and Kessa'lyn took it gently. Where their skin touched, warmth bloomed. Not the passive heat of body temperature, but something active, almost electric. Zara's augment registered unusual energy patterns, harmonic frequencies that resonated with her own neural activity. "I feel," Zara whispered, unable to complete the thought. "Resonance," Kessa'lyn completed. "Our frequencies align. It is unexpected, unprecedented even. Interspecies harmony bonds are theoretically possible but exceedingly rare." Zara's augment displayed cascading data, neurological patterns synchronizing, endorphin levels rising, something her technology couldn't quite categorize, but that felt fundamentally right. "Is this acceptable? In your culture?" "Acceptable?" Kessa'lyn's laugh was soft, almost musical. "It is extraordinary. And yes, if both parties consent to exploration." Her thumb traced gentle circles on Zara's palm. "Do you consent, Zara Chen?" "Yes," Zara breathed. "Absolutely yes." What followed transcended simple physical intimacy. The harmony bond that formed between them was both alien and achingly familiar, a meeting of minds and bodies and something deeper that defied easy categorization. Zara experienced fragments of Kessa'lyn's memories, emotional impressions rather than clear images, pride in her role as Ice Warden, grief for fallen companions, fierce protectiveness toward the archive and her people, and beneath it all, a growing affection specifically focused on the human scholar who had crashed into her world. When they finally separated, both were trembling with the intensity of the connection. Kessa'lyn's skin had shifted to deep violets and blues. Colors Zara instinctively understood represented profound emotion. That was, Zara struggled for adequate words. "Transformative," Kessa'lyn supplied. "We are harmony bonded now, Zara. Among my people, this carries significant implications. We are partners in the truest sense, bound together in purpose and protection." "I understand," Zara said, though she suspected she only partially grasped the full cultural weight. "And I welcome it. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Kessa'lyn drew her close and they settled into the furs together, their body heat mingling in the cool darkness. "Sleep now," the Sha'dari murmured. "Tomorrow brings challenges enough without exhaustion hindering us." As Zara drifted toward sleep, wrapped in Kessa'lyn's warmth and the afterglow of their bonding, she reflected on the impossibility of her situation. She'd traveled across the galaxy, survived a crash, and formed a profound connection with an alien species, and specifically with one remarkable individual who had become infinitely precious to her. The universe was vast and strange and wonderful, and for the first time since her vessel had been attacked, Zara felt genuinely hopeful about her future. Shadows on the Ice Dawn, such as it was during the darkening season, found Zara and Kessa'lyn preparing for the reconnaissance mission. 3 other Sha'dari warriors would accompany them. Rilsha, a younger ice warden whose skin bore intricate scar patterns from previous battles. Tovnel, a quiet male whose specialty was tracking. And Mesikara, an elder warrior whose crystalline integration was so advanced she seemed more mineral than organic. The Vor'taxx established temporary camps at the edges of the frozen wastes, Meskar explained as they gathered equipment. From there, they send scouting parties toward our territory. We must determine their numbers and intentions. Zara secured her data archive in a protective case, along with her plasma cutter and what remained of her emergency supplies. Kessa'lyn had provided her with Sha'dari cold weather gear, surprisingly effective garments that incorporated crystalline threading for additional insulation. "Stay close to me," Kessa'lyn instructed as they departed the settlement. "The terrain becomes treacherous beyond our borders, and the Vor'taxx may have positioned sentries." The journey tested Zara's endurance immediately. The Sha'dari moved with effortless grace across ice fields and through crystalline forests, while Zara struggled to maintain pace despite her best efforts. Her augment provided navigational assistance and environmental data, but nothing could compensate for her lack of native adaptation to this brutal world. After several hours, Tovnel raised a hand, signaling halt. He crouched, examining the ice with focused intensity. "Vor'taxx passage," he announced quietly. "Multiple individuals, heavily laden, moving toward the archive settlement." "How recent?" Kessa'lyn demanded. "Within the last cycle, perhaps less," Tovenel's expression was grim, and there are many, more than we anticipated. They followed the trail cautiously, weapons ready. The landscape gradually shifted from the relatively hospitable region near the Sha'dari settlement to increasingly hostile terrain. Jagged ice formations that resembled broken teeth, crevasses that plunged into darkness, winds that howled with predatory hunger. Zara's augment detected thermal signatures ahead. Movement, she warned quietly. Multiple heat sources approximately 200 meters forward. The Sha'dari warriors exchanged glances. Rilsha gestured toward a cluster of crystalline formations that would provide cover and vantage. They positioned themselves carefully, and what Zara saw made her blood run cold. The Vor'taxx encampment sprawled across a valley, far larger than anyone had anticipated. Dozens of structures, crude but functional, dotted the landscape. And the Vor'taxx themselves, they were nightmarish. Massive creatures standing easily 3 meters tall, with thick gray hide that appeared almost armor-like. Their heads were elongated and reptilian, with multiple eyes arranged in asymmetric patterns. They moved with ponderous strength, but Zara's augment detected surprising agility in their gestures. By the archive, Meskara breathed. There must be 100 or more. And those structures, Kessa'lyn added, pointing to what appeared to be weapon emplacements. They're preparing for prolonged siege, not a simple raid. Zara activated her augment's recording function, documenting everything. Her linguistic protocols analyzed Vor'taxx vocalizations, seeking patterns. The results were disturbing. They're not just gathering, she said quietly. They're coordinating. Listen, those rhythmic sounds? That's structured communication. Military commands, unless I'm badly mistaken. Tovenel had circled to another vantage point. When he returned, his expression was even grimmer. There are more camps. I counted at least 3 other encampments within visual range. We face an army, not a raiding party. The council must know immediately, Meskara stated. We return. An alarm cry split the air, harsh and piercing. Zara's augment identified it as a Vor'taxx warning signal. They'd been discovered. Move! Kessa'lyn commanded, and they fled. The pursuit was immediate and terrifying. Vor'taxx warriors poured from the encampment, their massive forms covering ground with alarming speed. Zara ran with desperate energy, her lungs burning in the frigid air, her muscles screaming protest. A projectile whistled past her head, some kind of crystalline shard that shattered against ice nearby. The Vor'taxx were armed with primitive but effective weapons. There, Rilsha pointed toward a narrow crevasse. We can lose them in the ice labyrinth. They plunged into the opening, and the world became a maze of crystalline walls and twisting passages. The Vor'taxx roars echoed behind them, but the massive creatures struggled to navigate the confined space. They ran until Zara's legs threatened to collapse, until her breath came in ragged gasps. Finally, Kessa'lyn called a halt in a small chamber deep within the ice labyrinth. We've temporarily evaded them, she assessed, but they know our general direction. We must reach the settlement before they cut off our route. Can we? Zara gasped, leaning against crystalline walls for support. We must. Kessa'lyn placed a hand on Zara's shoulder, and warmth flooded through their harmony bond. Not just physical heat, but emotional support, shared determination. Together we endure. Tovenel was already scouting alternative routes. The northern passage leads toward settlement territory, but it's exposed. We'll be visible for significant stretches. Then we move quickly and pray to the archive that Vor'taxx coordination is poor, Meskara decided. Rilsha, take point. Tovenel, rear guard. Kessa'lyn, maintain close protection of the human. Her name is Zara, Kessa'lyn said firmly, and Zara felt a surge of affection through their bond, and she has proven herself worthy of respect. Meskara's multifaceted eyes studied them both, and something like understanding flickered across her crystalline features. As you say, Ice Warden, protect your harmony bond. Now move. The journey back became a nightmare of near misses and desperate sprints across exposed terrain. Twice more Vor'taxx scouting parties spotted them, forcing detours that cost precious time. Zara's augment tracked their progress with clinical precision. They were still hours from the settlement, and exhaustion was taking its toll. During a brief respite, Zara accessed her data archive again, reviewing everything she'd recorded. Her linguistic analysis was forming disturbing patterns. Kessa'lyn, she said urgently, the Vor'taxx communications, I think I'm beginning to understand their command structure. They're not just gathering randomly. Someone is coordinating this invasion. A single intelligence directing multiple units. A war leader? Kessa'lyn frowned. The Vor'taxx have always operated in loose tribal confederations. Unified leadership would be unprecedented. Which explains why this attack is so much larger and better organized than historical precedent, Zara reasoned. Someone has united the Vor'taxx tribes, and if I can learn more of their language, we might be able to anticipate their strategies. First, we must survive to utilize that knowledge, Mescara interjected. Move, the settlement is near. The final approach was chaos. A Vor'taxx war party had positioned itself between them and the settlement, forcing a direct confrontation. The Sha'dari warriors fought with breathtaking skill, their crystalline weapons flashing in the perpetual twilight. Zara found herself in combat for the first time in her life. A Vor'taxx warrior charged her, its massive bulk promising certain death. Training took over, Kessa'lyn's brutal instruction during their practice sessions. She rolled beneath the creature's grasp, brought her crystalline staff up in a two-handed strike that caught it beneath what might have been a jaw. The impact jarred her arms painfully, but the Vor'taxx stumbled, giving her precious seconds to scramble away. Then Kessa'lyn was there, her spear finding vulnerable points with lethal precision. The Vor'taxx fell and Kessa'lyn pulled Zara to her feet. "Run," she commanded, and they ran. They burst through the settlement's outer perimeter, where Sha'dari defenders had mobilized at the sound of combat. The pursuing Vor'taxx hesitated at the sight of organized resistance, then withdrew, their war cries fading into the distance. Zara collapsed the moment they reached safety, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. Kessa'lyn caught her, lowering her gently to the ground. "You fought well," the Ice Warden said softly, pride evident in her voice. "You have the heart of a warrior, scholar though you may be." "I have the heart of someone terrified and desperate to survive," Zara corrected weakly. But she smiled, understanding that survival itself was a victory. The voice of memory awaited them in the archive heart, her crystalline features grave as they delivered their report. When they finished, including Zara's analysis of Vor'taxx Unified Command, silence descended like snow. "We face extinction," the voice of memory said finally, her harmonics carrying resignation. "Against such numbers our defenses cannot hold indefinitely." "Then we must change our approach," Zara said, surprising herself with her boldness. "We can't match them in numbers, but we can outthink them. I've begun decoding their communication patterns. If we can disrupt their command structure, create confusion in their ranks." "You propose linguistic warfare?" An elder's tone was skeptical. "I propose using every advantage we possess," Zara countered. "Your people have preserved knowledge for millennia. My people have survived by adapting and innovating. Together we might find solutions neither could achieve alone." The voice of memory's multifaceted eyes reflected crystalline light as she considered. "Very well, Zara Chen. You will work with our memory keepers to develop these strategies. Ice Warden Kessa'lyn will coordinate defensive preparations." She paused. "And may the archive preserve us all, for we shall need every fragment of wisdom we possess." As the council dispersed to their various tasks, Kessa'lyn drew Zara aside. Their harmony bond thrummed with shared concern and determination. "We stand at the precipice," Kessa'lyn said quietly. "Everything my people have built, everything we've preserved across thousands of rotations, it may all end in the coming days. Or it may be transformed," Zara suggested, taking Kessa'lyn's hands in hers. "Evolution isn't always gentle, but it can lead to something stronger. Your people's knowledge combined with human innovation, Sha'dari preservation combined with human adaptability, that's a powerful synthesis." "You speak of hope," Kessa'lyn observed. "I speak of possibility," Zara corrected. "And I speak of us, what we've become together. If a human and a Sha'dari can form a harmony bond, if we can bridge species and culture to create something new, then maybe your people and mine can forge an alliance that benefits both." Kessa'lyn's skin shifted to warm amber tones, affection and hope, and fierce determination. "Then we fight not just for survival, but for that possibility, for a future where human and Sha'dari stand together." "Together," Zara echoed, and sealed the promise with a kiss that resonated through their bond like crystalline harmonics. The Vor'taxx were coming, but they would not find the Sha'dari defenseless, nor would they find Zara Chen cowering. They would find resistance, innovation, and the combined strength of two species refusing to surrender. The battle for the archive heart was about to begin. The archive's defense Zara had never worked so intensively in her life. For 3 cycles she barely slept, immersing herself in Vor'taxx linguistic patterns while simultaneously helping the Sha'dari adapt their defenses. Her augment processed vast amounts of data, building translation matrices and identifying command structures within the enemy communications. The memory keepers proved invaluable allies. They provided historical records of previous Vor'taxx raids, cultural analyses spanning centuries, even preserved audio recordings of Vor'taxx vocalizations. Zara integrated all of it, her human, analytical methods combining with Sha'dari archival precision to produce unprecedented insights. Here, she told Kessa'lyn during one strategy session, projecting holographic displays of her findings. The Vor'taxx war leader uses this specific harmonic sequence to signal attack commands. If we can replicate it with slight modifications, create confusion in their ranks, we turn their coordination against them. Kessa'lyn finished, understanding immediately. Can your technology reproduce these sounds? My augment can, though the range is limited. But if we integrate it with your crystalline resonance systems. Zara's mind raced with possibilities. The archive heart itself could become a weapon, not of destruction but of disruption. Mescara, who had been listening silently, leaned forward with interest. You propose using the memory stones as transmitters? Unprecedented, but theoretically possible. They worked through the night. Human. Technology interfacing with Sha'dari crystalline systems in ways neither species had imagined. Zara's augment provided the translation and modulation capabilities, while the memory stones amplified and broadcast the signals across distances that would have been impossible for her technology alone. By dawn, they had a functioning prototype. When tested, it produced Vor'taxx command harmonics with enough fidelity to fool even Tovnel, who had studied enemy communications extensively. It's not perfect, Zara cautioned, but it should create enough confusion to disrupt their coordinated assault, at least temporarily. Temporarily may be sufficient, the voice of memory said. She had been overseeing their work personally, her ancient wisdom guiding the unprecedented collaboration. We need not defeat the Vor'taxx entirely, merely hold them until your human vessels arrive. That was the other element of their strategy. Zara had managed to repair her emergency beacon using salvaged components from her crashed vessel and Sha'dari crystalline technology. The signal was broadcasting continuously now, a desperate cry for aid that might reach Colonial Authority ships, if any were within range, if they chose to respond, if 100 other variables aligned favorably. Even if help comes, Kessa'lyn said privately as they prepared the settlement's final defenses, it may arrive too late. We must be prepared for that possibility. Zara touched their foreheads together, sharing warmth and determination through their harmony bond. Then we make every moment count. We fight with everything we have, and we trust that our combined strength is enough. The Vor'taxx attacked at dusk of the 3rd cycle. They came in overwhelming numbers, a tide of gray-skinned warriors flowing across the frozen wastes like an avalanche. Sha'dari defenders took positions along crystalline barricades, weapons ready, harmonics rising in battle songs that resonated with primal power. Zara stood in the archive heart beside the voice of memory and the memory keeper technicians, her augment interfaced with the crystalline transmission system. From here, she would attempt to disrupt Vor'taxx coordination, linguistic warfare on a scale never before attempted. They're within range, Mescara reported from her defensive position. The war leader's commands are clear. They intend to breach the eastern perimeter first. Then we give them conflicting orders, Zara said, her fingers flying across holographic controls. She activated the transmission system, broadcasting modified Vor'taxx commands. Western perimeter vulnerable. All units redirect. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Confusion rippled through Vor'taxx ranks as warriors received contradictory commands. Some hesitated, looking to their leaders for clarification. Others began redirecting toward the western perimeter as ordered. It's working, one of the memory keepers exclaimed. Don't celebrate yet, Zara cautioned. The war leader will adapt. This bought us minutes, not hours. Indeed, within a short time, the Vor'taxx leadership began using counter-signals, attempting to override the false commands. But Zara adapted, as well, her linguistic expertise allowing her to stay one step ahead, creating just enough chaos to disrupt the coordinated assault. Outside, the battle raged. Kessa'lyn led the eastern defense with devastating effectiveness, her spear finding vulnerable points in Vor'taxx anatomy with lethal precision. Rilsha and her warriors held the southern approach, their crystalline weapons creating a wall of death that the enemy struggled to penetrate. But the Vor'taxx kept coming. For every warrior that fell, two more seemed to take its place. The sheer weight of numbers began telling against Sha'dari defenses. "We're being overwhelmed," Tovnel reported grimly via crystalline communication. "They're adapting to your disruption tactics faster than anticipated." Zara's augment was overheating from the sustained processing load, warning indicators flashing across her vision. She pushed past the limits, knowing that failure meant not just her death but the destruction of everything the Sha'dari had preserved across millennia. A massive impact shook the archive heart. The Vor'taxx had breached the outer perimeter and were now assaulting the central structure directly. "Protect the memory stones," the voice of memory commanded. "Even if we fall, the archive must survive." Sha'dari warriors fell back to interior defensive positions. Kessa'lyn appeared at Zara's side, her crystalline armor cracked and bloodied. "They're too many," she said simply, her expression carrying neither fear nor despair, only acknowledgement of reality. "But we continue fighting. Until the end," Zara agreed, abandoning her control station to take up a weapon. If this was where they made their final stand, she would face it alongside her harmony-bonded partner. The Vor'taxx war leader himself breached the archive heart's entrance, a massive specimen standing nearly 4 meters tall, his hide covered in battle scars and ceremonial markings. He raised his weapon, preparing to lead the final assault that would crush Sha'dari resistance forever. Then, the sky split with thunder. Zara's augment detected massive energy signatures, ships entering atmosphere with military precision. She dared to look up through the archive heart's crystalline ceiling and saw the most beautiful sight imaginable. Colonial Authority vessels descending like avenging angels, their weapons already engaging Vor'taxx ground forces. "They came," she breathed, hardly believing it. Help actually came. The effect on the battlefield was transformative. Vor'taxx warriors, already confused by the linguistic disruption and worn down by determined Sha'dari defense, broke ranks, at the sight of orbital bombardment eliminating their rear positions. The war leader roared commands, attempting to rally his forces, but cohesion had shattered. Within an hour, the Vor'taxx army was in full retreat, pursued by Colonial Authority fighters and vengeful Sha'dari warriors. Epilogue. New harmonies. The aftermath of battle was both devastating and hopeful. The Sha'dari had lost warriors, brave defenders whose crystalline essences would be preserved in the archive they had died protecting, but they had survived, and survival meant possibility. Captain Orion of the Colonial Authority vessel Vanguard proved surprisingly diplomatic in his first contact with the Sha'dari. Zara served as intermediary, her unique position allowing her to bridge both cultures effectively. Dr. Chen, Captain Orion said during the initial negotiations, "Your emergency beacon's linguistic annotations were extraordinary. You provided enough cultural context that we understood immediately the significance of this archive civilization." "I had excellent teachers," Zara replied, glancing at Kessa'lyn, who stood beside her in formal Ice Warden regalia. The Sha'dari possessed knowledge that could benefit humanity tremendously, but only if approached with respect and genuine partnership. The negotiations took weeks. The Colonial Authority wanted to establish a permanent presence, to study Sha'dari technology and culture. The Sha'dari Council, while recognizing the need for allies, insisted on maintaining autonomy and protecting their archive from exploitation. Zara found herself acting as more than just translator. She became advocate, mediator, and bridge between two species learning to understand each other. "You have found your purpose," Kessa'lyn observed one evening as they stood together overlooking the partially rebuilt settlement. Not just survival, but something greater. I found more than purpose, Zara corrected, drawing her harmony-bonded partner close. I found home. I found you. I found the work I was always meant to do. The final treaty established the Archive Heart as a neutral zone, protected by both Sha'dari and Colonial Authority forces. A research station would be built, staffed by both species, dedicated to mutual cultural exchange and development. And Zara Chen, formerly a civilian researcher, was appointed the first director of interspecies cultural exchange, a position created specifically to honor her contributions. Will you be happy? Kessa'lyn asked that night, their last before the new station officially opened. Living between two worlds, belonging fully to neither? Zara considered the question carefully. I'll be living in a new world we're creating together. Human and Sha'dari, two species that should never have met, forging something unprecedented. She touched their foreheads together, feeling the warmth of their harmony bond.
How could I be anything but happy?
Years later, when the first generation of children born to human Sha'dari families began, manifesting hybrid characteristics, human, creativity combined with Sha'dari memory, crystallization, people would point to Zara and Kessa'lyn as the pioneers, who made it all possible. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the auroral light of an alien sky, they were simply two beings who had found something rare and precious. Connection that transcended species, love that bridged worlds, and partnership that would shape the future of multiple civilizations. The fire Zara had lit in desperate survival had sparked something far greater, a beacon that would guide humanity and the Sha'dari toward a shared destiny among the stars, and that, Zara reflected with deep satisfaction, was the best possible outcome of any first contact scenario.